In a land shrouded in mist and shadow, the castle of the Vampire King stood tall and eerie against the darkening sky. Its towering spires reached like skeletal fingers into the clouds, while its stone walls, covered in creeping vines, seemed to whisper secrets of ages long past. This gloomy fortress sat atop a jagged hill, overlooking a vast and dense forest that thrived with supernatural life. If you enjoy this video, please like the video and subscribe for more, and tell me where you are watching from today. I always find it awesome to see where all my viewers are watching from. Let's get back to the video. Twisted trees stretched their gnarled branches outward, casting long shadows that danced upon the ground as the wind moaned softly through the leaves. The forest was alive with sounds. Hoots of owls, rustling of small creatures hidden in the underbrush, and an occasional echoing howl that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to tread too close. Locals spoke in hushed tones about what lurked within those thick woods, creatures of the night, spectral beings, and of course, the fearsome Vampire King himself. Tales were spun of his dark magic and unyielding power, stirring a mix of fear and awe among the villagers who lived nearby. On nights when the moon hung high and full in the sky, casting an ethereal glow upon the castle grounds, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. It was said that on such nights, one could catch a glimpse of figures cloaked in shadows moving silently through the realm. The Vampire King ruled over his domain with an iron grip. Yet for all his fearsome reputation, there were whispers that he possessed a softer side, a glimmer of humanity buried deep within his cold heart. Within this brooding castle lived a humble maid named Ilara. She had worked there for many years, learning to navigate both the grand halls and the chilling secrets that lay within the stone walls. Ilara was known for her gentle demeanor and quick smile, which warmed even the coldest corners of the castle. However, beneath her cheerful exterior, she carried a heavy secret, her daughter, Lyra. Lyra was no ordinary child. With raven-black hair and deep violet eyes that sparkled like amethysts, she was as beautiful as she was unique. But it was her sharp fangs, two glistening teeth that formed when she smiled, that Ilara kept hidden from everyone around them. Fearing what might happen if anyone discovered Lyra's true nature, Ilara had raised her daughter in secrecy, shielding her from sight even as they lived under the Vampire King's roof. As autumn settled into an everlasting twilight over the land, preparations for a grand feast began within the castle to celebrate another year of the Vampire King's rule. Banners were hung from lofty ceilings adorned with images of ancient sigils. Tables were laden with delicacies fit for a king, fruit from enchanted orchards, and meats sourced from far-off lands. Yet beneath all this festivity lay an undercurrent of unease among all who served in the castle. Despite her worry about exposing Lyra's fangs to anyone at this feast, including perhaps even to their ruler, Ilara felt a tug in her heart. The idea of allowing her daughter to experience such splendor filled her with bittersweet hope. Could they find acceptance amidst the shadows? Or would their lives be driven deeper into darkness with one revealing moment? This feast might bring answers they had awaited for far too long. A chance at freedom or an encounter with fear itself. As night approached and lanterns flickered to life against the encroaching dark, Ilara gathered her courage for what lay ahead. Little did they know just how much their lives would change under the watchful gaze of the Vampire King. Ilara moved gracefully through the dimly lit corridors of the castle, her heart a mix of warmth and worry. Each day she donned her simple black dress and apron, but it was her gentle spirit that truly set her apart. With every flick of her wrist, she tidied up the grand rooms, dusting off the ornate furniture and polishing the silverware until they gleamed. As she worked, she hummed soft melodies that seemed to soothe even the coldest stone walls. Despite the castle's dark reputation, Alara's laughter often echoed through its halls, a sound that brought a glimmer of light into the shadowy corners. She had a way of brightening the dreariest days with her kind heart and quick wit. The other servants admired her for her unwavering optimism, even as they cast wary glances toward the ominous throne room where the vampire king held court. But beneath Alara's cheerful exterior lay a heavy burden. Her daughter, Lyra, was a secret she guarded fiercely. Each evening after her chores, Alara would sneak away to their small chamber tucked away in the castle's highest tower. This was a place only the two of them knew, filled with treasures collected from their daily lives. Shells from the beach, colorful leaves from the forest, and drawings Lyra crafted with care. Lyra, with her raven-black hair and striking violet eyes, was a child of wonder and mystery. But it was her sharp fangs that made Alara's heart ache with fear. Each time Lyra laughed or smiled brightly, Alara felt a pang of anxiety. The maid knew all too well what would happen if anyone discovered her daughter's true nature. In this castle filled with whispers of dark magic and vampire legends, such a secret could lead to dire consequences. While Alara diligently cleaned and prepared for the upcoming feast, she also took moments to teach Lyra about kindness and the world outside their hidden life. They spent hours together, reading old fairy tales by candlelight, reveling in stories of brave heroes and enchanting creatures. Lyra's imagination soared. She dreamed of adventures beyond the castle walls and longed to explore the forest that beckoned enticingly outside their window. Yet, despite their joyful moments together, Alara often felt a shadow lurking over them. She worried for her daughter's future and feared that one day their peaceful existence would be shattered. The impending feast was particularly unsettling for her. It would bring many guests who might notice Lyra's differences. "Do you think they will like me?" Lyra asked one evening, her voice tinged with innocence as she toyed with a worn stuffed animal that had seen better days. Alara knelt beside her daughter and gently brushed a strand of hair behind Lyra's ear. "They will love you for who you are," she replied softly, though doubt gnawed at her heart. "Just remember to be careful." As autumn nights grew colder and shadows stretched longer across the castle grounds, Alara felt the weight of her decisions press heavily upon her shoulders. She wanted to protect Lyra at all costs, but also yearned for a day when they could live without fear or secrets. With each flickering candlelight in their tower room, Alara resolved to shield her daughter from harm while preparing for the uncertain future ahead. Little did she know that the night of the feast would alter their lives forever. A night where secrets could either bind them closer or tear them apart completely. Lyra was not just any ordinary child. With her unique characteristics, she was a living testament to the secrets that surrounded her existence. As she played in their hidden chamber, her laughter rang like silver bells, bright and cheerful. Yet each note felt tinged with an unspoken mystery. Alara often watched her daughter with pride, but the joy was laced with anxiety. Lyra's sharp fangs had become both a source of wonder and a cause for concern. At first glance, one might be enchanted by Lyra's beauty. The way her raven-black hair shone in the candlelight and how her violet eyes sparkled with mischief. But when she smiled, revealing those two gleaming fangs, Alara's heart would race with fear. She knew that these traits were not merely quirks of childhood. They were telltale signs of something deeper, a lineage that had to remain hidden at all costs. Alara had taken great care to teach Lyra how to manage her unusual qualities. "When you feel happy or excited, remember to keep your mouth closed," she would gently remind her. In response, Lyra would nod earnestly, but sometimes a mischievous grin would slip through. prompting Alara to quickly cover the child's mouth with her hand. The maid understood that laughter and joy were important, but so was safety. In addition to her fangs, Lyra possessed other traits that set her apart from children of the village. Her senses were sharper than most. She could hear whispers from far away and see clearly in the dimmest light. On quiet nights, Alara would often catch Lyra staring out their window toward the forest, as if something were calling to her from the depths of the trees. "What do you see out there?" Alara would ask softly. "Magic," Lyra would reply with wide eyes, filled with wonder. "I can feel it." But Alara also felt a chill settle in her bones at those moments. The idea of magic was both enchanting and frightening, especially in a castle ruled by a king known for his dark powers. She feared what might happen if anyone discovered Lyra's gifts, her fangs or heightened senses. Would they welcome her? Or would they see her as something unnatural? As days turned into weeks leading up to the feast, Alara grew more cautious and protective. She created games for Lyra that did not involve revealing her fangs, building castles from pillows or pretending to be characters from fairy tales where no one had sharp teeth or supernatural abilities. These activities kept them busy and distracted from the looming event that could threaten their way of life. However, there were moments when Lyra's natural instincts took over during playtime. Once, while playing tag around the castle gardens, she darted past some startled guests who couldn't help but notice how effortlessly she moved, almost like she glided instead of ran. With every leap and laugh, Alara's heart swelled with pride but sank with fear. What if someone saw too much? What if they find out about me? Lyra asked one evening as they settled in for bedtime stories. "They won't," Alara replied firmly, yet tenderly. "We are safe here together." Yet deep down, Alara knew that keeping such secrets could only last for so long. As preparations for the feast continued and excitement grew around them, the weight of their hidden truth felt heavier on Alara's shoulders. Each flickering candle in their room reminded her that soon they would have to face an uncertain future. A future where acceptance might hang by a thread, and where one revealing smile could change everything forever. As the days slipped by, a sense of anticipation buzzed in the air, thick and electric. The sun hung lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the castle grounds. Then, one crisp morning, a herald arrived at the village with a grand announcement that echoed throughout the kingdom. With a flourish of his red cape and a voice that boomed like thunder, he proclaimed that the Vampire King would host an extravagant feast to celebrate another year of his reign. The news sent ripples of excitement and unease through the villagers. Some hurriedly prepared for the event by polishing their best attire and gathering special treats to offer as gifts to the king, while others whispered among themselves about what this celebration might mean for those living under the shadow of his rule. After all, a feast was not just a celebration. It was also an opportunity for the king to display his power and remind everyone of his dominion over them. Alara felt her heart race as she heard the announcement broadcast throughout the castle halls. She stood frozen in her small chamber, where she had been arranging flowers picked from their secret garden. This feast could mean trouble, for her and Lyra. With many guests expected to attend, nobles and common folk alike, the chances of someone discovering Lyra's true nature grew greater. "Do you think we will go?" Lyra asked as she twirled around in her faded dress, golden curls bouncing with every movement. Her innocent question cut through Alara's swirling thoughts like a sharp knife. "The feast is for everyone in the kingdom," Alara replied cautiously, trying to mask her worries with a smile. "But it will be very important that you stay out of sight." Lyra's eyes sparkled with excitement, but then dimmed slightly at her mother's words. Why must I stay hidden? I want to dance and have fun too. Alara knelt down to meet her daughter's gaze. I know, dear one, but it is better this way, for your safety. The truth hovered just beneath her words. It was not only Lyra's safety that frightened Alara, but also the fear of being cast out from their place in the castle if anyone found out who they really were. As preparations ramped up in the castle, servants scurried about, bringing in lavish decorations, rich fabrics adorned with intricate patterns that hinted at both grandeur and darkness. Long tables filled with fruits, meats, and wines from lands beyond made mouths water in anticipation. Yet beneath all this festivity lay an unspoken tension. Villagers gathered together in groups to discuss what the feast could mean for their lives. Some believed it would herald new beginnings. Others feared potential dangers lurking behind its ceremonial splendor. They shared tales of past feasts, draped in mystery and intrigue. Events marked by lavish displays, but also by whispers of darker undertones. As the date approached, Alara became increasingly aware that hidden within this celebration was a precarious balance between joy and danger. For every inviting flicker of candlelight that illuminated their lives was also a shadow waiting to grasp hold if they faltered. In solemn moments before bedtime, when only shadows danced across their room, Alara held Lyra close as they gazed out at the moonlit forest beyond their window. Whatever happens at this feast, she whispered softly into Lyra's ear, remember, you are loved. But what if I can't hide my fangs? Lyra asked worryingly. Alara stroked her daughter's hair tenderly. Then we will face it together. They both understood that soon they would step into an uncertain future where past choices would collide with newfound truths. An inevitable moment when they would have to confront not only their fears, but what lay beyond those walls of protection around them. Alara paced back and forth in their cozy chamber, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on the stone walls. As she arranged the flowers they had picked together, her mind was a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. The lavish feast was days away, and with each passing moment, her anxiety grew stronger. While part of her longed for a life without secrets, the dread of exposing Lyra loomed larger than ever. What if someone sees me? Lyra's voice broke through Alara's thoughts as she played with a small wooden toy. The innocence in her question tugged at Alara's heartstrings, reminding her of how unfair it was to burden her child with such fears. Then we will be careful, Alara replied softly, though she could hear the tremor in her own voice. She looked at Lyra, who was so full of life, and felt a wave of guilt wash over her. You are special, my darling, but we must keep that specialness safe. The truth weighed heavily on Alara's mind. No matter how much she cherished their quiet life together, she was terrified of what would happen if anyone discovered Lyra's true nature. The sharp fangs that appeared when Lyra laughed or smiled were not just a childhood quirk. They were a sign of something deeper and darker that Alara had fought to keep hidden. As the date of the feast approached, Alara wrestled with her dilemma. In her heart, she yearned for freedom, the kind that came from living openly without fear of being discovered. She wanted to take Lyra to the celebration, let her dance and laugh among the villagers, and feel the warmth of acceptance instead of secrecy. Yet every time she imagined unveiling Lyra's fangs to the world, panic gripped her. What if they don't accept me? Lyra had asked during one of their quiet evenings together, her voice barely above a whisper. Alara knelt down beside her daughter and took her small hands in hers. They will love you for who you are, she reassured her gently. But deep down, Alara questioned whether that love would extend to someone like Lyra, someone who embodied both beauty and fear. The thought of being cast away from the castle made Alara shudder. What would happen if they were forced to leave? They had no place to go. This castle was their home. It was where Alara had built a life filled with memories and laughter, despite its dark reputation. With each day that passed, Alara felt torn between two worlds. The world inside the castle walls where she worked endlessly to provide for them, and the world outside that was filled with uncertainty and danger. She often found herself lost in memories of what life might have been like if things were different. If Lyra were just an ordinary child without fangs or hidden truths. At night, when they settled in for bedtime stories beneath soft blankets adorned with stars, Alara clung to those moments fiercely. She told tales filled with adventure and bravery, where heroes always emerged victorious over their fears. As she tucked Lyra into bed one evening, she thought about how she wanted nothing more than for her daughter to live freely. Yet with every enchanting story came a reminder of their reality. A reality where one revealing moment could change everything forever. In moments of solitude, as shadows danced across their room, Alara understood that time was slipping away. Soon they would have to confront their fears head-on at the feast. Whatever happens, Alara whispered. She kissed Lyra's forehead goodnight. Know that you are my brave little girl. But even as she spoke those words, doubt gnawed at her heart. Would bravery be enough to protect them from the consequences of living in secret? As sleep enveloped them both, Alara prayed for courage, for herself and for Lyra, because soon they would step into the unknown together. As the days leading up to the feast passed by, Lyra's curiosity blossomed like the flowers Alara often arranged in their room. While playing with her wooden toys, she would pause often, gazing out the window at the vast forest that bordered the castle. Something about the shadows and whispers of the trees drew her in, filling her with a sense of wonder. Yet, there was another question that tugged relentlessly at her young heart, one that tied her to an unknown past and a father she had never met. "Mama," Lyra began one afternoon, her tiny fingers fiddling with a piece of twine. "Can you tell me about my father?" Alara froze mid-task, her heart clenching at the mention of Lyra's father. She had always known this day would come, the day when her daughter would grow curious enough to seek answers. Well, she hesitated, searching for the right words as she tried to avoid unease creeping into her voice. "He is not part of our lives now." "But why?" Lyra's eyes sparkled with innocent determination as she tilted her head, pressing for more details. "What was he like? Did he have fangs too?" Alara's breath caught in her throat at the mention of fangs. "Your father. He was strong and powerful," she began slowly, recalling the stories she had heard whispered in dark corners of the castle. "He belonged to a different world, one filled with magic and mystery." "And just like me?" Lyra asked, her fascination growing deeper as she twirled around in excitement. "Yes, just like you," Alara replied softly, kneeling down to meet her daughter's gaze. The truths and shadows danced around them as she spoke. A complex tapestry of love and loss that wore heavily on Alara's heart. Lyra's mind raced with images of what life could have been like if her father were present. Moments filled with laughter, adventure, and perhaps even sharing stories about where she came from. Could we find him one day? Alara felt a heaviness settle over her like a cold fog rolling through the forest. She wanted to shield Lyra from the painful truths that lay beneath their hidden existence, but also understood that answering such questions required honesty and clarity. "Some things are best left in the past, my darling," she said softly. "Not everything is safe for us to explore." As if catching a distant melody, Lyra turned back to the forest outside their window, staring deep into its depths where shadows twisted and shifted. "But I want to know about my family, about where we come from." The plea in Lyra's voice stirred something within Alara, a blend of pride and sadness. "We share a special bond that's different from everyone else," Alara explained gently, "and those connections are precious." "But it feels like it's more than just us," Lyra insisted softly. "What if I'm meant for something greater?" Alara sighed deeply, both proud of her daughter's spirit and fearful of what could come from fostering such dreams. As night fell and shadows grew longer around them, Alara tucked Lyra safely into bed, while her mind swirled with thoughts about how to protect her daughter from their hidden truths. "Please promise you won't forget me," Lyra murmured as sleep began to envelop her small frame. "Never," Alara promised firmly as she kissed her forehead softly. Yet deep down, Alara understood that secrets often carried weighty consequences. And as much as she wished for a future filled with acceptance for Lyra, every untold truth seemed to hover ominously over them both. In those moments before sleep took hold of Lyra's imagination, Alara silently vowed to find a way for herself and her daughter to confront their shared past when the time felt right. For until then, curiosity would only lead them deeper into questions without answers. A path they would soon need to navigate together during the impending feast. The days slipped away like grains of sand, and the impending feast loomed ever closer, casting a shadow over Alara's heart. She found herself returning to the same question time and again. Should she bring Lyra with her or keep her hidden from the world? The air felt thick with uncertainty as she turned the decision over in her mind. Lyra's innocent excitement about the event nagged at Alara's conscience. Her daughter had always been full of life and wonder, eager to explore the world beyond their small chamber. Each time Lyra spoke about wanting to be part of the celebrations, of dancing, laughing, and being accepted by others, Alara felt both pride and fear swell within her. This was a child who deserved to experience happiness. Yet, could exposing her bring potential danger? As she performed her daily chores, Alara caught glimpses of villagers bustling around the castle grounds, preparing for the feast. Laughter echoed in the air, mixed with the aroma of delicious food being cooked by cookmaids in large cauldrons. The sounds of music floated through the corridor, hinting at the festivities that would soon take place. Each joyful note felt like a reminder of what Lyra might miss if she remained hidden. That evening, after tucking Lyra into bed, Alara sat in silence under the dim glow of a single candle. Thoughts raced through her mind as she reflected on their lives so far and what this moment meant for their future. Could she really allow Lyra to attend the feast? The risk felt monumental, but hiding away seemed burdensome for both of them. As if sensing her mother's turmoil, Lyra stirred in her sleep and murmured softly, "Mama, will I see those colorful dresses like you told me?" Alara took a deep breath and glanced toward her daughter's peaceful face illuminated by moonlight. "You will," she whispered tenderly. "You will see so many beautiful things." But could she allow one simple act of hope to potentially unravel everything they had worked to conceal? The next day, Alara ventured into the reflection pond near the castle gardens, seeking solace among the ripples that danced under the sun. Sitting on a weathered stone bench, she stared into the depths of the water and saw not just her own reflection, but visions of what life could be with no secrets. a life where Lyra could be free to embrace who she truly was without fear. What if we were brave? Alara suddenly thought aloud, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with resolve. She envisioned them walking hand in hand into that banquet hall, filled with grandeur, colorful decorations draping from every beam, while laughter and music resonated all around them. In that moment of clarity beside the pond, Alara made up her mind. They would go to the feast together. She would show Lyra that acceptance could exist even amidst fear. Maybe there would be others like her out there, or at least kind souls willing to look past appearances and embrace differences. It was a leap into the unknown, but one that might finally lead them both toward acceptance instead of secrecy. With newfound determination, Alara returned home to prepare for their big night. She carefully picked out a dress adorned with bright colors for Lyra, the kind meant for celebrating joy, as well as adding a subtle shawl to gently cover her daughter's shoulders if needed. In doing so, she steeled her heart against waves of anxiety. After all, true love often required courageous steps. As evening approached and lanterns flickered to life throughout the castle's vast halls, Alara felt a cascade of nervous energy course through her veins. This is it, she thought, as she looked at Lyra with pride shining in her eyes. Are you ready? Alara asked softly as they stood at their door. With you by my side, Lyra exclaimed excitedly while clutching Alara's hand tightly. And so they stepped out into the unknown together, toward acceptance, toward understanding, and into a night that would change everything forever. As Alara and Lyra arrived at the castle for the grand feast, a wave of excitement and unease washed over them. The entrance to the banquet hall was adorned with dark, flowing drapes that billowed like shadows in the flickering light of torches. The air was thick with the mingling aromas of roasted meats and spiced wines. But amid the festive scents lay a twinge of something more sinister, perhaps a hint of fear or foreboding that clung to the atmosphere. Inside, the vast hall was a sight to behold, filled with long tables draped in deep crimson cloths that glimmered under glinting candlelight. Elaborate centerpieces of twisted branches and black roses adorned each table, creating an eerie beauty that was both captivating and unsettling. The walls were lined with portraits of past kings and queens, their eyes seemingly following every guest as they moved throughout the room, whispering stories from the shadows of history. Guests milled about in elegant attire, but their laughter held an edge of nervousness. Alara noticed clusters of nobles, their voices hushed as they exchanged glances toward the throne at the far end of the hall. There, upon a high dais, sat the vampire king himself, cloaked in darkness, yet exuding an undeniable charisma that drew all eyes. His presence filled the room with a palpable tension, for while some admired his power, others whispered fears of his unpredictable nature. Alara felt her heart race as she held Lyra's hand tightly. The girl looked around wide-eyed, taking in the sights and sounds, her innocent excitement shining through her mother's veil of anxiety. "Look at all the pretty things," Lyra exclaimed softly, entranced by the shimmering decorations and the vibrant gowns swirling around them. "Yes, it is beautiful," Alara replied, though her voice trembled slightly. She couldn't help but worry about what awaited them both among such grandeur. Each moment felt like a delicate balance between danger and wonder. As they moved deeper into the hall, Alara caught snippets of conversations laden with concern. "Have you heard about the disappearances?" one noblewoman whispered to another, her voice laced with fear. "They say it's the work of dark magic." "Perhaps it is a warning from the king," replied the man beside her, his expression grave. "We must tread carefully tonight." Alara's heart sank at these words. She could feel the weight of secrets pressing down on her as she glanced at Lyra, who remained oblivious to the dark undertones swirling around them. Ilara desperately wanted to protect her daughter from any hint of danger or disapproval that might arise. Lyra's eyes sparkled like stars as she spotted a group of children playing near the edge of the hall. "Can I go play with them?" she asked eagerly. The longing in her voice tugged at Ilara's heartstrings. She wanted nothing more than for Lyra to experience joy, but doubts crept in. "Stay close to me," Ilara replied gently but firmly. "We don't know everyone here." As the feast progressed, Ilara watched as guests danced and mingled, but she remained on edge. She held Lyra close, ready to shield her from any curious gazes or questions that might arise about her unusual traits. The music played on, a haunting melody that seemed to resonate with the very essence of the night, echoing through the grand hall like a siren's call. Then, just as Ilara began to relax, slightly amidst the festivities, she felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach when she noticed a figure approaching them through the throngs of guests. It was one of the king's advisors, a tall man with piercing eyes who looked as if he could see right through their facade. "What brings you two here?" he asked with a sly smile, his tone both curious and predatory. Ilara prepared herself to respond, knowing that their lives could change in an instant depending on how this encounter unfolded. All around them, laughter continued. Yet within Ilara's heart resided a single thought. Tonight would determine everything for her and Lyra, for better or worse. As Ilara braced herself for the encounter with the Vampire King, she felt a mixture of apprehension and awe wash over her. The guests had slowly started to part like waves in the ocean, creating a path toward the imposing figure seated on his throne at the end of the hall. The king was enveloped in shadows, his attire dark and regal, with a crimson cloak that flowed around him like liquid night. His presence commanded the room, drawing every eye and subtly silencing whispers as he surveyed the crowd. Ilara tightened her grip on Lyra's hand, sensing her daughter's excitement mingling with nervousness. Lyra tugged slightly, eager to step forward, but Ilara held her back just long enough for the moment to crystallize in her mind. This was their reality. Standing amidst chandeliers sparkling with light and festoons of deep-hued flowers, yet bound by secrets that could shatter their world. The king lifted his gaze, locking eyes with Ilara. Each heartbeat felt like a drum thundering in her ears as he leaned forward slightly. His features were chiseled and sharp, framed by dark hair that glimmered like obsidian in the candlelight. There was an intensity in his eyes that stirred both fear and fascination. He looked not only at them, but through them, as if assessing their very souls. "Ah, a maid and her child," he spoke, his voice smooth yet commanding, echoing throughout the grand hall. "What brings you to my feast on this most splendid night?" Ilara struggled to find her voice as she stepped forward cautiously. "Your Majesty," she began, forcing herself to maintain eye contact despite the swell of anxiety flooding her heart. "We wish to celebrate this occasion among our fellow villagers, to partake in the festivities." "Indeed," he replied, a slight smirk gracing his lips as he shifted his gaze to Lyra. The girl stood beside her mother, small but fiercely curious despite the nerves rolling off Ilara in waves. "And what of you, little one? Do you enjoy feasts filled with music and dance?" Lyra's eyes widened as she took a tentative step forward. "Yes, it's beautiful," she exclaimed before quickly dropping her head shyly under the weight of his interest. Ilara's heart raced at her daughter's innocent excitement, but fear quickly surged alongside it. Would they recognize her fangs? "Do you taste a hint of magic in the air?" The king continued smoothly, while glancing between mother and daughter. His voice was rich with curiosity as he leaned further down toward Lyra's level. "Does it fill you with wonder?" Tremors coursed through Alara as she feared what would come next. Lyra simply nodded enthusiastically, but kept her mouth closed tightly, as though hiding something precious. "I see," said the Vampire King thoughtfully, lingering on Lyra for just a moment too long. "Magic can take many forms, especially within families like yours." Alara's breath caught in her throat. Had he sensed Lyra's secret? She prepared for any number of questions or even accusations about what lay hidden behind their veil of secrecy. "That reminds me," he continued, straightening up and addressing the room once more. "Tonight is not just a celebration of my reign, but also an exploration of who we all are beneath appearances." The hushed whispers resumed among guests as they exchanged intrigued glances. Feeling a sense of rising dread mixed with unexpected resolve, Alara realized she needed to act swiftly. This was their moment, not just to hide away, but perhaps to find acceptance among fearful eyes. "Your Majesty," she spoke up suddenly, trembling but determined to be heard. Before she could finish her thought or reveal more about herself and Lyra's nature, a loud clattering echoed from across the hall. A nearby table had been overturned during boisterous dancing among revelers. The distraction lost Alara's chance to speak further as nervous laughter followed amongst those nearby. Still feeling exposed under the king's intense scrutiny made every heart bump louder against their chests. Glancing down at Lyra beside her, innocent yet full of life, Alara knew they had already stepped onto a path from which there was no return. Now more than ever, they would face whatever came next together, braving the unknown shadows that surrounded them in pursuit of acceptance amid danger and darkness. As the laughter from the guests echoed around them, Alara felt a knot tightening in her stomach. The sudden distraction of a table being overturned had shifted the spotlight away momentarily, yet she couldn't shake off the sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. It was as if every guest in the hall was holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. "Perhaps you should go and mingle with the other children," suggested the king's advisor with a sly grin, casting a glance toward where Lyra had been eyeing a small group of kids dancing nearby. "It could be an excellent opportunity for your little one to make friends." Alara hesitated, her instinct screaming at her to keep Lyra close. Before she could finish, Lyra let go of her mother's hand and stepped forward into the crowd. A strange mix of excitement and dread filled Alara as she watched her daughter venture farther away. Maybe it would be all right. Maybe this was a moment for Lyra to experience joy without fear. But just as Lyra began to smile and move closer to the other children, a loud crash erupted from behind them as another group of revelers danced wildly too close to an elegantly decorated table. An ornate candelabrum tipped over, sending wax and flames spilling onto the floor. Startled gasps filled the air as guests jumped back in alarm, creating an atmosphere thick with anxiety. Lyra turned, her eyes wide with fright. In that instant, her instincts kicked in uncontrollably. She opened her mouth to cry out, but instead revealed her sharp fangs in an involuntary display of surprise. The light from the torches caught the glinting teeth like daggers gleaming in darkness. A collective hush fell over the hall as all eyes turned towards Lyra. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire, fearful murmurs echoing against stone walls where once there had been only joyous celebration. Alara rushed forward, panic rising within her chest as she reached for Lyra's hand again. "No, darling, close your mouth." But it was too late. Everyone had seen what lay behind Lyra's innocent smile. The Vampire King leaned forward on his throne, his gaze intensifying as he observed this unexpected spectacle unfold before him. "How intriguing," he said slowly, his voice laced with interest rather than disdain. In that moment, Alara's heart raced between fear and hope. Could this actually lead to acceptance rather than rejection? "Do you see now?" He continued smoothly after a brief silence, filled only by hushed whispers among nobles who exchanged looks mixed with awe and horror alike. "Magic truly does take many forms." Lyra stood frozen beside Alara, trembling slightly, but still holding on tightly to her mother's hand. The gravity of their situation pressed down on Alara's shoulders like an unforgiving weight. She could feel every heartbeat pounding within her chest. "Your Majesty." Alara spoke up urgently, now that she had drawn attention back toward herself, while desperately trying to shield Lyra from judgmental gazes around them. "She is just a child. Please understand." Children are often mirrors reflecting their true nature. He interrupted softly, yet firmly, while studying Lyra intently, as though searching for hidden depths beyond those sharp fangs. In that charged silence that followed, her breath catching anew at how easily everything might slip away from them, Alara felt both terrified at what might come next, while also sensing something different in that ancient room. Possibility. Lyra's wide-eyed innocence clashed vividly against dark realities swirling around them. She wore confusion etched across her face, even amidst all this uncertainty. A reminder that they were still bound by secrets, yet might somehow find themselves free amongst acceptance if they dared hold on long enough together. Then came bursts of laughter from nearby dancers who resumed their joyous movements, unbothered by recent events unfolding moments ago. It emphasized how quickly life could turn back towards mirth even after darkness threatened its grasp. Alara squeezed Lyra's hand tighter, while preparing herself for whatever consequences lay ahead. They would face whatever shadows stood between them together. And perhaps tonight held more than just fear. They might also discover newfound strength emerging from unexpected places among frightened hearts, yearning for understanding amid darkness, waiting patiently outside those gilded walls surrounding them all. The hall buzzed with a mix of gasps and murmurs, as Lyra's fangs glimmered in the flickering candlelight. Alara felt a surge of panic rise within her, as if the very air had thickened around them. She could sense the shift in atmosphere, a vortex of emotions swirling from both fear and fascination among the gathered guests. A noblewoman, her face pale, clutched her partner's arm tightly. "Did you see that?" she exclaimed, voice trembling. "What kind of creature allows a child to roam free with such teeth?" Her eyes darted about as if searching for an escape route. Nearby, another guest, his curiosity piqued, leaned closer as if entranced. "Extraordinary. Look at those fangs," he whispered excitedly to his companion. Could she be something more than just a child? A harbinger of magic, perhaps? Alara tightened her grip on Lyra's hand, her heart racing as she sensed the unease tinged with intrigue enveloping them. She wanted to shield her daughter from the fearful gazes that darted their way. Every whispered word felt like a dagger aimed at their fragile existence. "Stay close, Lyra," she murmured urgently, trying to mask her own rising dread. Lyra turned to Alara, confusion evident on her innocent face. "Mama, why are they looking at me like that?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. "It's okay, sweet girl," Alara reassured her, though her heart ached with worry. They don't understand yet. But how could she explain? This was no ordinary situation. The fear in the room was palpable. The reactions surrounding them varied from terror to intrigue, but acceptance felt like a distant dream in that moment. Alara glanced toward the vampire king on his throne, who observed everything with an intensity that made even the boldest nobles shrink back. His eyes, dark yet gleaming with something akin to fascination, held an unexpected spark of interest as he leaned forward slightly. "Fascinating," he murmured to himself before addressing the thrumming crowd. "What we witness here tonight is proof of the myriad forms magic can take." Alara's breath caught in her throat. Was it possible that he might defend Lyra? Could he offer some semblance of protection against the reactions hovering at the edges of horror? "Do not be so quick to judge what you do not understand," he continued, glancing over at Alara and Lyra as if urging them to trust in his judgment. The king's tone had an authoritative calmness that momentarily quelled the rising tide of panic around them. Yet still, terror lingered in the air among some attendees who dared to glance sideways at one another. Those who could not look away from Lyra's fangs. Their gaze lingered on Alara, too. This was not just any child. They were witnessing something extraordinary and unsettling. "Perhaps we are fortunate to glimpse true magic tonight," said one courageous nobleman aloud, attempting to break through the tension that gripped them all. His voice wavered but carried an edge of determination that sparked interest among others who had remained quiet. Alara squeezed Lyra's hand tighter, feeling warmth from her daughter's small fingers even amidst uncertainty. It was a reminder that they were two against the world. A world ready to tear apart what it did not comprehend. Yet hope flickered in their hearts nonetheless. "Mother and child," the king spoke once more, his voice steady and resonant as he addressed his guests again. "What we see before us blurs lines drawn by fear." He cast a long look at Lyra and then back at Alara. "In this realm ruled by shadows and magic alike, acceptance can blossom unexpectedly." The whispers began anew, some questioning while others pondered the implications of these words. But beneath it all lay hope. Perhaps acceptance would take root after all. Alara felt a swell of gratitude toward the king for standing up against judgmental glares directed at them, and for daring others to see beyond appearances. "Thank you," she whispered almost reflexively toward him, before realizing how exposed they remained, even under such scrutiny. Lyra raised her chin slightly now, boldness blooming where fear once resided, as Alara treasured this newfound strength within her daughter amid chaos unfolding all around them. They would face whatever came next together, embracing both fear and wonder as part of their journey onward into uncertain realms, waiting just beyond their reach while revealing truths hidden within shadows, yearning for light together, ever more brightened together onward. Always entwined, lifting wings, soaring high, above ever stretching boldly, seeking paths unraveling, embracing harmony, beckoning brightly, threading journeys, brightening lives, weaving tales transcendent forever, warm hearts blooming, illuminating forever, steadfastly wrapped bonds, nurturing embrace together, awakened vibrant, shimmering, newly recast gathering, brightened horizons, flourishing together, boundlessly, evermore sailing onward, navigating realms abound, awaiting discovering bright journey, unbroken, shining brightly, illuminating evermore, fusing hearts, forever homeward bound. The murmur of voices in the hall began to soften as the vampire king stepped down from his throne, his dark cloak trailing behind him like a shadow. All eyes were on him as he approached Alara and Lyra. His expression a mixture of intrigue and something softer, a kindness that seemed out of place in the midst of the tension. "Child," he said gently, kneeling slightly to bring himself to Lyra's eye level. "Do not be afraid. Your fangs are a part of who you are, just as my own nature shapes me." His voice was smooth, weaving through the air like a comforting balm amidst the apprehension surrounding them. Lyra's wide eyes met the king's gaze, drawn in by his unexpected warmth. "Am I different?" she asked hesitantly, her small fingers still gripping Alara's hand tightly. The king smiled, revealing an understanding that transcended their surroundings. "Different is what makes each of us unique. You hold magic within you, just like everyone here holds their own kind of magic, though they may not always see it." Alara felt a wave of relief wash over her. She hadn't expected such kindness from the ruler of the land. Here was a man who understood the weight of being different, a man who chose to embrace it rather than condemn it. "But they are scared," Lyra whispered, glancing around at the guests who were still processing what had just happened. The fear was palpable. Some turned away, while others continued to watch with wide eyes. Fear often accompanies misunderstanding, the king replied thoughtfully, straightening up as he surveyed the crowd. "But tonight can be a turning point, a chance for understanding." He then raised his voice so all could hear. "Let us celebrate not only our differences, but also our shared humanity. Let there be acceptance where there has been fear." His words hung in the air like an enchanting spell, causing many guests to exchange cautious yet curious glances. Alara could sense the mood shifting. Whispers transformed from mere fear to contemplation as notions of acceptance began to bloom among them. One nobleman spoke up from the crowd, his tone resolute. "If the king sees value in this child, we should too. Let's open our hearts and minds." The ripple effect was immediate. Heads nodded, and murmurs of agreement began to spread like wildfire. Alara looked down at Lyra, who now gazed back at her with a spark of confidence igniting within her innocent eyes. Could it be? Could this night truly lead to acceptance? In that moment, Alara realized they were no longer just mother and child hiding in shadows, but participants in something much larger. A movement toward understanding that could reshape how others viewed differences. "Thank you," Alara whispered to the king, feeling gratitude swell within her chest for defending her daughter so fiercely. His presence embodied both strength and compassion, an unexpected ally amidst adversity. The vampire king nodded slightly, as if acknowledging her silent appreciation, before turning his focus back on Lyra. "You are special," he reassured her softly again. "Your fangs symbolize your unique path in life." Lyra smiled shyly up at him, her earlier apprehension easing into curiosity as she felt empowered by his kind words. The hall came alive with renewed energy. Laughter intermingled with voices filled with excitement and acceptance, replacing fear once held tightly close, as Alara took a deep breath and watched this transformation unfold around them, the heavy burden lifting from her shoulders. She knew that they had crossed an important threshold together. They would face whatever came next as a united front. A mother and daughter bound by love and now supported by unexpected allies, willing to embrace differences rather than shun them. With newfound determination blossoming within them both, they stood rooted together, ready to embrace this extraordinary journey ahead. One filled with magic and connection beyond fear. Turning towards bright horizons, glowing invitingly onward, illuminating pathways, welcoming their adventure, interwoven deeply together, celebrating love, conquering within all realms, united, forging bright futures, destined cradled above radiant dreams, forever entwined together, evermore. With the atmosphere in the hall shifting toward acceptance, Alara felt an unfamiliar sense of peace settle within her. The guests, once frightened by Lyra's fangs, now appeared to ponder the Vampire King's words more thoughtfully. A newfound energy filled the room, transforming caution into curiosity, illuminating hopes that had long seemed out of reach. As Alara looked down at her daughter, the transformation was astonishing. Lyra, who had once concealed herself behind layers of fear and uncertainty, now stood with a glimmer of confidence. She was not merely a child with sharp teeth anymore. She was a symbol of potential and magic. It was then that Alara realized they were no longer outsiders hiding in the shadows, but participants in a lively dance of acceptance. "Can I join them?" Lyra asked as she pointed to the children playing and dancing nearby. Their laughter rang like music, beckoning her to join their joyous revelry. Alara hesitated for just a moment, fear bubbling back up inside her chest. But something in Lyra's eyes told her that this was indeed a new beginning, the start of a life where they could both embrace who they truly were. "All right, but stay close," Alara said, her voice laced with encouragement even through the shaky remnants of worry. As she released her grip on Lyra's hand, a rush of warmth enveloped both mother and daughter. "I'm right here," she reassured her. Lyra took off toward the group of children, her laughter mingling with theirs. And for the first time that night, Alara allowed herself to let go a little. She watched as her daughter joined in the games and dances, and it quickly became apparent that acceptance had begun to bloom. Not just for Lyra, but within Alara as well. The king observed this interaction keenly, his gaze holding an unusual depth as he surveyed the scene unfold before him with an approving nod. "Let this be known. Tonight marks not only a celebration of our magic, but also a celebration of love, compassion, and understanding among us all," he intoned, casting his gaze over the crowd. "We shall create connections that transcend past fears." Alara felt gratitude wash over her as she embraced this opportunity afforded to them. Not just as herself or as Lyra, but as part of a larger community ready to change its perspective on what it meant to be different. This moment defined everything. It set forth a path carved with hope, illuminated by kindness. As conversations erupted around them, filled with laughter and friendly exchanges among nobles eager to learn more about each other, Alara sensed that walls built from prejudice were beginning to crumble. There was magic in the air, a mix of old alliances reformed and new bonds being forged. Turning back toward her daughter, Alara saw Lyra animatedly recounting experiences of magic into curious faces eager for tales woven together from threads of wonder instead of fear. The way the children enveloped her with open arms showed that perhaps innocence persisted where judgment had once taken root. The Vampire King stepped closer to Alara, lowering his voice to a gentle whisper that carried significance beyond mere words. "You both are safe here tonight," he promised warmly. "Whatever storms lie ahead, walk knowing that you have allies in this realm. Friends who will cherish your differences." Alara nodded slowly at his sincerity, while cherishing every beat woven through those profound minutes spent together. Now lifting burdens once thought heavy, fixed upon heartstrings healed anew, forged beneath, guiding light, lived daily therein, warmed, shared forever. Nurtured simply love, intertwined life, long stepping, steadfast, forging ahead, boldly touching lives, sparkling against daybreak, sweeping endlessly onward, friendships, inviting warm embracing, unleashed colors, swinging broad thread pathways, brightened, newly shining. Them barking together united hearts, illumined, sharing vibrant affinities, tracing drawn alongside aspiring dreams, weaving eternally along, streaking passing waves, inviting lifting life, touching reaching, embracing anew. Together thriving, maintaining encouragingly, soaring higher tomorrow. Evolving, nurturing, blossoming endeavor, uplifting, embarking vast possibilities, rooted deeply forever onwards. one complimentary note stepping forth, illuminating harmony, blooming courage, fortifying passion, fused magically forth, brighter horizons, beckoning, shimmering, congratulating warmth, pursuing renders, any course redefined, encouraged, beholding day's joyous daylight. As the evening progressed, the themes of acceptance, family secrets, and embracing one's true identity began to crystallize in the minds of those present at the feast. Alara observed how the guests' perceptions of Lyra shifted from fear and judgment to curiosity and even admiration. This transformation echoed a powerful message about the importance of understanding rather than shunning what is different. Alara had long lived under the weight of their family secret, the fear of revealing Lyra's fangs and what it would mean for their safety. For years, she had taught her daughter to hide who she was, believing that keeping Lyra's true identity concealed would protect them both. But as she stood watching her daughter interact with the other children, laughter spilling forth like music, Alara understood that hiding was no longer an option. Lyra's fangs, once a symbol of shame and fear, had morphed into a badge of uniqueness, one that others were beginning to celebrate rather than fear. The Vampire King's unexpected kindness had not only opened doors for Lyra, but also for Alara. It allowed her to rethink how she viewed their lives. Perhaps they could embrace their identities instead of living in the shadows. "Mama, can I tell them about my magic?" Lyra asked with wide eyes, her excitement bubbling over as she gestured toward the group of children who had welcomed her so readily into their games. Alara felt a swell of pride within her. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied, her heart filled with warmth. This was a defining moment for them both, an opportunity to share their truth rather than hide behind it. As Lyra spoke animatedly about her unique abilities to sense things others could not, Alara noticed the genuine interest in the faces surrounding her daughter. The children listened intently, asking questions and encouraging her to share more stories about her adventures. It was a beautiful sight, one that showcased how powerful acceptance could be when nurtured by kindness. Meanwhile, Alara caught sight of the Vampire King observing from a distance, his expression one of approval. His belief in Lyra's potential and uniqueness rippled through the crowd, fostering a growing sense of community that transcended initial fears. He had become an unexpected ally in their journey toward self-acceptance, a figure who had shown that even those who wield power can choose compassion over prejudice. As the night wore on, Alara felt lighter than she had in years. She engaged in conversations with other guests who approached her with open hearts and minds, eager to learn more about her and Lyra's story. The bond between mother and daughter deepened as they navigated this new world together. No longer alone, but part of something much bigger. This is just the beginning, Alara thought, as she watched Lyra take center stage among her new friends. Their laughter filled the hall with joy, transforming what could have been a night marked by fear into one illuminated by hope and unity. By the time stars twinkled brightly outside the castle walls, Alara knew they had forged a path toward a brighter future, one where acceptance would replace fear, where differences would be celebrated rather than scorned. They were no longer just a maid and her daughter hiding from the world. They were part of a community ready to embrace all facets of magic and identity. As they left the feast together, hand in hand, Alara felt gratitude swelling in her heart for the experiences that lay ahead. They were stepping into new beginnings filled with promise, a journey woven together by love, understanding, and an unbreakable bond forged in acceptance. Together, they would rise above shadows lurking nearby as they embraced this transformative chapter in their lives, a life where every moment felt alive with possibility.